I'm delighted to say Billy O'Loughlin, the Longford Gaelic football manager, is with us this morning to talk to us about his experience of the Tailteann Cup and indeed the Leinster Championship as well. Billy, first off, commiserations. It was a fairly close run thing at the weekend in the game against Fermanagh. How are you feeling after that now?
Yeah, look, as the dust settled, I suppose you're probably disappointed having been beaten in the end, and with such a tight and sharp finish. I suppose it made it that little bit more disappointing, when the final whistle went. But in terms of experience and in general about the Tailteann Cup, it was absolutely fantastic, and the players were delighted to be able to play in a competition that gave them some real competitive balance, and granted it was a knockout game and I know it's going to be changed to round robin next year, which is fantastic that the players will get more games against teams of an equal standing, which I think is the best way to develop players and get them to the next level. Certainly from our point of view, we were very, very happy to take part in it, and we've had a really big push for the Tailteann Cup, and it was very little drop off. One or two lads had gone to America and that directly after the league. But I think there was probably more of an emphasis from the start of the year, certainly from my point of view, that the Tailteann Cup was something that we could, genuinely compete in. And it's a competition that I think going forward has great potential. Certainly has great potential anyway.
What stage of the cycle are you at with Longford? How long are you there, and what's your plan into the future?
Yeah, well, I was the last manager, I think, in and probably, I suppose, surprised a lot of people by getting the job. But I think Albert Cooney has been very forward thinking, and he wanted someone that was a bit younger in their careers, and someone that I suppose was going to get people. I got people around me that were going to think outside the box, and that the likes of Michael Hannon and Paul Brady and that. So look, we started very late in December, and I made my feelings clear with Albert on the Leinster Championship and things like that from the start. And I thought that for Longford to develop with the young players that we have, the league was of vital importance to us. And I think that, staying up in Division 3 was absolutely huge because, make no bones about it, Longford played Meath in the Championship in 2021 and were beaten quite heavily. I think it was 4-22 to 12 points. And, that's not good for anyone from a smaller county. And certainly with such a small pool of players in Longford, we had to start this year without 6 of those forwards. They weren't on the panel. They wouldn't come in for one reason or another. And, I spoke to most of them and very courteous lads, and, they explained to me that, the merits of playing with Longford and the challenges of playing with Longford, and a lot of them are based on the eastern board up in Dublin and in Galway and that. And as I made my feelings clear, I suppose the carrot at the end of the stick has always been the Leinster Championship, and that's not very attractive anymore to players that are working at at such a high level jobs and are putting such commitment into their football as well. So that has been difficult, I suppose, from that point of view. But we kind of took the bull by the horns early doors and just stuck the younger guys in there, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And I think we finished the game the other day against Fermanagh with 4 20-year-olds and 2 19-year-olds playing. So I'm not sure if there's any other county in Ireland with that turnover of players. But it's absolutely super that they got to experience the Tailteann Cup and in an environment, with Saturday evening against Fermanagh, and it was just brilliant. It was such a close game. It was very, setup was quite defensive, and it was, a real game of attrition right to the wire, and to get those young lads in that environment was marvellous, and it serves them an awful lot better than having to go up and play in Croke Park, maybe having won one game and then to be, subjected to, I suppose, a team who were much further down the line, like a Dublin or a Kildare. So from that point of view, it has been great. It has been difficult up and down, and we've had an up and down, I suppose, league. But staying in the Division 3 was super. And then, we really put a big push for the Tailteann Cup. And look, it was knockout, wasn't to be, but overall a thoroughly enjoyable experience.
I'll talk to you about the players who are with you and plans for the future in a moment. Just to go back, because we sometimes get accused of having an agenda when it comes to this, but the agenda is based on listening to people like you who are managing counties and finding it difficult to convince players to play. So can we just go back to that, because when you're talking to the 6 lads who aren't playing, it's specifically, or one of the things that they talk about is not being humiliated in Croke Park in the Leinster Championship. Is that accurate for me to say that?
They wouldn't specifically say that, but look, in a roundabout way, it's something that would be, at the back of their minds, and definitely, I know from past experiences with nearly all counties in Leinster that, apart from Dublin, really that they've shipped, numerous drubbings, I suppose, if you like, at the hands of teams that would be, further down the path, as I'd like to say. But it's definitely a concern, and look, there's such a small playing pool in Longford. And, they really have been punching above their weight, in terms of staying in Division 3 for the last 7 or 8 years. But it's a worry that players would be turned away from the game that they've been playing since they're young lads, and they're often against playing with their inter-county team because of the hard slog and the 6-month commitment for a competition that really, there's no competitive balance there. And, the Leinster Council are it's just they're serving up a competition for players that, it's not meaningful for them really. And when you weigh it up in terms of ratios to Leinster Championship games to 6 months of training, is that something that they're going to do? No, it's not. Is the Tailteann Cup next year with a group stage and a round robin? Is that something that players can aspire to win, and and sense of achievement there if you went well in it and got a run in it? Absolutely, and I think that is something that's a worry. But hopefully now with the Tailteann Cup, we will be able to drum up enough support to get some of these guys in, because the clubs in Longford have been absolutely fantastic, and there's some great strong clubs in Longford, as Kilo and Mullinachta and Dramard, and all these teams are producing fantastic players. And it's just sometimes the players are opting off the panel, and that is difficult, and it really is difficult to throw 4 or 5 19, 20-year-olds into a starting forward line against a seasoned team like Fermanagh, let alone Fermanagh, who are at our level, but let alone a Division 1 team that you might have to play in the Leinster Championship. So look, it is a concern, and I think that the Tailteann Cup is definitely a building blocks, or it's a step towards enticing these guys in. And I think for 2023, we're probably going to be, we'll be on the front foot in terms of, preparing the team with getting those lads in.
So where does that leave the Leinster Championship in your plans for 2023?
Well, look, judging by the schedule of games that's going to be laid on for us next year, you've an O'Byrne Cup, which will be probably in around early January in the muck and rain, and then you've a Division 3 competition, which is so evenly balanced and so competitive next year with Down and Offaly and Cavan and Tipperary in it. So look, that will be of utmost importance to Longford to compete in that, and it's very enjoyable. Those games are really, really enjoyable. And we probably lost more than we won this year, but it was really, really enjoyable. And I think the players are coming around to recognising that is probably the most important competition, followed closely next year by the Tailteann Cup and group stages and group games in the summer months, hopefully in May and June, if they push it out that far. That's where players want to be playing. Like, players are crying out to play games in the summertime that have the importance of them, that they are of equally balanced and competitive. And the Leinster Championship would be so further down the line for us next year. And I think the Leinster Championship is actually sandwiched in between the league and the Tailteann Cup. So, they're not making things easy for themselves in terms of attendances. And, like, for example, like, I remember being on the sideline, in 2005 with Laois when they were beaten by Dublin. There was 82,000 at it. And last week's Leinster final probably had 34 or 5,000 at it. So people are voting with their feet, and it's replicated throughout the early rounds of the Leinster Championship. I think there was 2,900 people at a local derby between Longford and Westmeath. And you go back, even I remember Laois and Carlow playing with the Phantom Pint in 1997. There was about 18 or 19,000 in Port Laois. So if that doesn't speak volumes as to where the Leinster Championship is, I don't really know what will.
Do you see any point in the Leinster Football Championship for Longford anymore?
Certainly for smaller teams, the first round can usually be very competitive, and you'll get a win every now and again, against a larger fish, if you like, and Longford have done it in the past and have certainly competed. Drew with Kildare a couple of years ago. They beat Meath in 2018, and Carlow have had a great victory over the last couple of years against Kildare and that. But then to go out the following week, then it's very difficult, with the probably the strength and depth in the panel to go and compete with a Division 1 team. It's very, very difficult, and when now that the Tailteann Cup is there, I think that the emphasis needs to be more so on competing at that level rather than the Leinster Championship. Look, I mean, Longford have been to 2 Leinster finals in 137 years of play in 60, 65 and 68. And look, that's not a good ratio, I suppose, for any county really. And look, if you go down through it with the Wicklow's and the Carlows and even Westmeads have been to very few finals, and that Laois's, Louth's, so it's the way it is at the moment. I think there has been one winner of the Leinster Championship. There've been 17 of the last 18 have been by Dublin. So look, is that competitive? I'm not so sure.
Do you think we're getting to a point where the Longfords of the world, the Carlows of the world might just decide what's the point in us being part of this competition anymore? Do you think, for example, Longford should be part of the competition next year?
Yeah, look, they're obviously going to run the competition again next year and have done for since its inception, I suppose. And it's just, is it fit for purpose? I think I said back in January after one of our Burn Cup games against Dublin, where we were very competitive, and it was in the wind and the rain and down in Longford to get Dublin down there, and it was a competitive game, and that's probably where you deserve your shot at the bigger counties in the early pre-season tournaments, as opposed to now where we're just on a different graph, if you like. So we'll certainly compete in it, and as I said, this year our Westmeath game in the championship was a cup final for us, and we were hoping to to get one over on them again, as we did in the league. But now that, as I said, now that the inception of the Tailteann Cup is there, I think that the focus, certainly from a player's point of view, the likes of Darren Gallagher and Paddy Collum and Mickey Quinn, of course, these boys have spoken out in the dressing room after our Westmeath game that the Tailteann Cup was something that they could achieve, that they could go on and potentially win at some stage throughout their careers. And given it has got reasonably good publicity in the last while certainly from the players, that can be a good thing. But the Leinster Championship, I think, the likes of your Mick Reynolds and Pat Teans and these guys, it's the walls are closing in, I would say, on it, in terms of it being, it staying competitive, because it just hasn't been that way.
It's kind of pointless at this stage.
It's certainly, from a point of view of preparing a team for us, it has little to no importance in terms of what we can achieve and what we can win. And I think that our Division 3 is just, it's a phenomenal competition that we play in. It's going to be phenomenally difficult to try and compete and stay in that next year. And that's what players want. Players are getting 7 unbelievably tough games in a competition that's of huge importance to us. And it's of great significance that the guys can develop in these competitions, and particularly when you have such young players that we've been using, the Jack Duggans and the Keelan McGanns and these guys, that they're 19, 20 years of age, and preparing them in a Division 3 with competitive games is just, it makes more sense than the drubbings that you might receive later down the line in the Leinster.
The one thing about the league, while it's a brilliant competition, we are not guaranteed in February, March and April good quality weather. And not guaranteed weather at any time in Ireland, you have to say, but certainly the weather, at least in summer, the ground is a bit better, and it has an opportunity to dry out, and we might get a bit of sunshine.
Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely.
But like if you think back to some of those league weekends, the wind was howling and the rain was lashing and the cameras needed wiped and we couldn't really see what was going on in some of them.
Yeah,
But still the games were all fairly close in all all four divisions.
they were unbelievably competitive. Like it was, look, my first experience, I suppose, as with the management team, with Mickey Hannon and Paul Brady and the likes, and we were just, we stated that after every game that we were in the game in all 7 games we played, and we were competitive in all of them. We won a couple of them, drew one of them, and really, if you look back over some of the video analysis that we were doing, like the wind and the rain, and the conditions are just atrocious. And like Longford played 4 competitive games in January, in the last 3 weeks of January, and in June, July, and August we'll play none. And that's incredible. You look at the League of Ireland at the moment, I think attendances are up 52% on what they were in 2019, because the games are competitive. They're playing in sunshine. People like bringing their families to games where the weather is great. They're not going to go to games in muck and dirt in January and February. Like it's the January should be set aside for Sigerson, which is fantastic competition, and then they should start the pre-season towards the end of February. Like there's February, March, April, May, June months there that the weather is a little bit better, but particularly in May and June where like Longford have no game in June now, no competitive championship game in June, where they had 4 competitive games in January. That just doesn't make sense whatsoever,
Even with the round robin next year, will you have games in June if the round robin kicks in?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's pushed back into June and that, because the club championships certainly here in Laois don't start till the end of July and August, and they don't start till August in Longford either. So, players are not playing championship now with their club or their county in June and July. And that has to be looked at. So it's players, look, from being in the dressing room and with Longford this year, players are screaming out for games and competitive games, and that's all they want. They're amateur players. They're travelling up 2 and 3 nights a week from Dublin in traffic, in rain, and you name it, and just the sheer joy that they get from competing in games. And particularly the other day, to watch that Tailteann Cup game the other day with Fermanagh and Longford go right down to the wire, and seeing Iarla O'Sullivan in full flow and Ultan Kelm for Fermanagh, really a sight to behold, the speed of them and the level of enjoyment that the Fermanagh guys got from winning the game, and that's something that we want to be part of. But it's over now for a lot of the counties, and even I'm close to Carlow here, and seeing Carlow winning beating Tipperary in perfect conditions in Dr. Cullen last weekend. That is exactly what football for the lower teams in Division 3 and 4 is about, and hopefully now with the Tailteann Cup we'll get more games, and like more competitive games would bring people to stadiums, to grounds around the country. What we're doing at the moment in Leinster is we're half selling out, a quarter selling out Croke Park, whereas these Tailteann Cup games around the country, given time, will start to increase in attendances and fill out grounds, and you'll have really, like, look at Leitrim and Sligo this weekend, or next weekend, whenever it's on. This weekend we'll have a great crowd at it. Fermanagh and Cavan will have a great crowd at it. That's exactly what people want. It's what players want. But yet, we're being served up this Leinster Championship, which it is no good for any certainly the 3 and 4, the Division 3 and 4 counties anyway.
It turns out it's not that good for the Division 1 and Division 2 teams either. Like it just doesn't work. Is there any world in which you guys wouldn't take part, and get together with the counties on your same level and say, what's the point of this, lads? This is a waste of our time. We'd be as well playing challenges against each other and not taking part in this.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that I have discussed. Maybe a lot of purists and traditionalists in the GAA and certainly in the smaller counties always like the big crack at the big boys, but it's not the same anymore. It's a semi-professional set up in most counties, and the further up the divisions you go, the more professional really it gets. And I think it's very naive of certain traditionalists in a lot of counties to think otherwise. And Albert Cooney, I think, for me, I've spoken at length with him about would there be any point in kind of not competing in the Leinster Championship next year, and you know, obviously enough, it's probably a bit of a way out there opinion on it, but it's the Tailteann Cup will serve us great value next year, getting more games in it. So look, the Leinster we probably will be in the Leinster Championship next year, and we'll treat it like we did this year as a kind of a cup final, if you like. But in terms of developing our younger players from Longford, it's all about the league and the Tailteann Cup.
That's interesting, Billy. You've actually had the idea of not competing in the Leinster Championship, because I think it's the first time we've ever heard a manager who is at intercounty level say this does not do us any good. And I'm thinking about what a world would look like if we pulled out of it, and how that might actually make our team better. Isn't that a remarkable scenario we find ourselves in, where in 2022 you think that actually the best thing for you is not to take part in the scheduled official competition? Like, it does seem radical, but it also, listening to you for the last 15 minutes, it also seems completely logical.
Yeah, look, it's certainly sentiments that look, it's at the end of the day, it's only my opinion, but I have spoken at length with the players about what's important for us to develop, and I think that, you know, the competitive nature of sport means that, you know, players are very keen to achieve and develop, and I don't think they get that in the Leinster Championship. And you know, where we go with the Leinster Championship from here is an unknown. But I think it's sandwiched, as I said, it's sandwiched in between two very competitive competitions for us next year. So look, I'm not going to say that we'll entirely be rooting for pulling out of it, but it's in terms of importance, it's down the list.
Do you talk to any other intercounty managers about this as well? Is there like is this something that if there was an intercounty manager WhatsApp group and you put in, here lads, listen, we don't think this is any good, what would the response be like?
Yeah, look, I don't know if they'd be as open and as honest as that, but certainly the statistics don't lie on the end product of the Leinster Championship, and there's been one winner in the last, Dublin have won it 17 out of 18 years. So look, I'm sure if you asked any of the Dublin players, not that you'd get much of an answer, but I think that they would rather be playing in a competition as well, where they're getting games week in, week out, for nail biting close encounters, and it's just, that's not something that's happening at the moment, and that's evident from all quarters that you can see that. So managers are any of the managers that I've spoken to when we've played challenge games or anything like that, they're very, very competitive guys, and rightly so. And even the likes of Tipperary winning a couple of years ago and Cavan winning a couple of years ago, and look, that's not for me to make a call on that. That's Munster and Ulster. I'm just talking from a Longford point of view, and how we can develop is what's important to us.
Yeah, and they did win in COVID years as well in wintertime. So it's not like it was a normal summertime championship, and not to diminish what their achievements at all, because obviously everybody's going through the same things, but it was the complete outlier. And if we're going to make the rules based on complete outliers, once in a blue moon, once in a 40 year, once in 100 years, in some instances, then we're not really designing competitions to get the most from all of the counties, to give everybody the opportunity to have their best players playing for the same amount of games over the course of the year. And then we can begin to judge, where should the money go to help? Where does the coaching need to go? Where do we need to invest in urban areas? Where do we need to make sure that rural clubs are being supported to keep them going? We can begin to make proper long-term plans if we actually had the competition structures in place. Look, I don't want to rehash the Proposal B. We argued till we were blue in the face. This is the way forward. Give it a chance. See what happens. Take a risk. And we got shot down because, well, sure, those players are going to be moving on in a couple of years anyway. Yeah. The Tailteann Cup is a little bit of a halfway house, but we still have, in the middle of summer, there's going to be a Munster final, and there's going to be a Leinster football final, and fewer and fewer people are going to go to those games. It now turns out the counties aren't even that interested. I'm delighted you've been so honest about it, because it's hard to get people on the record to say this doesn't matter anymore. this matters and this matters. And we all know the league is the best competition we have. Yeah. Like, imagine if the league was being played in summertime now. Imagine if you were going down to the last round with something on the line in the league. Like, you'd be filling, people would be coming to watch you training.
Yeah, exactly. And look, our league went down to the last game at Laois, and it was a very, intense encounter. But it was winner take all on the day, and that sort of scenario is what's really needed in terms of summer football. And I don't think I think if you asked a Dublin fan honestly, going to these games, these Leinster Championship games, like they played Wexford and Meath and Kildare. Are they getting value for their money to go to Croke Park to watch in a half-empty stadium to watch, them in cruise control? And look, this isn't today or yesterday. This has been like this since 2005 nearly, So, something will really have to be done about it. But, from our point of view, that's just the way it is. And we spoke, as I said, we spoke with the players, and the players are of utmost importance, certainly to me and the management, that we want to see what these guys want, and they're the guys that are putting the time and effort in, and they're the guys that the people of Longford will be going to see. So what is it they want, and what they've been screaming out that they're very keen to play more of these games, and look, the proposal B was an absolute no-brainer, and there's probably no need to rehash that argument again, but it really was. It was an open goal, and certainly from Division 3 and 4 counties, it would have led to summer football, championship football, and a pathway of progression where you can get your day in the sun against your Kildares and Dublins and Kerrys and that if you won your league championships, if you like. So it's. From a revenue point of view, I think the GA are selling themselves short, because people are just they're voting with their feet, and they're not paying for these tickets to come in and watch these I suppose dead rubbers, if you like, until it gets to the business end. And look, the business end of the year, when you see Dublin and Kerry and Tyrone and all these teams in full flow, it's absolutely fantastic. It's an unbelievably brilliant marketable product that people go and see, but we're just not getting enough competition, and that's the problem with the Leinster Championship. And it's disappointing, because I've been going to Leinster Championship games since I was a child, and it just doesn't have that same buzz about it that it had, and the players, I think the players are aware of that as well, and it's important to be real, to be realistic about where we sit at the moment with the Leinster Championship. And we're delighted that there is a Tailteann Cup there for us to compete in next year.
Billy, great stuff. It's really interesting to hear somebody who's at the coalface, who talks to the players, and who's a very passionate and very clear and logical advocate for them, because I think it's important that your voice is heard in all this as well. Commiserations on the exit, and I'm looking forward to what you do next year with a full pre-season behind you as well. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Thanks, Ger.